Before you pick your next family movie, allow me to steer you toward a constructive, yet entertaining one. There is a tremendous amount of rich theological conversations that can be had after watching Marvel's The Eternals. Instead of shielding our children from movies that present God, history, and the very nature of the human experience in a way contrary to what God has revealed, we should use them as a catalyst for dialogue. Whereas it's not a guarantee of conversation, it seems more likely that kids, and especially teenagers, would rather talk about ideas and themes in a movie you've enjoyed together, rather than striking up a conversation out of thin air. I think one of the top advantages of this approach is that, unlike a direct Bible study where our responses are practically scripted, this forces kids to express their actually freelance thoughts. I believe that movies are a great avenue to present your kids with ideas that they will be faced with in the culture and lay them up against scripture in order to help your children ferret out the truth. Let's quickly go through some of the themes of the movie in order to help generate talking points, and hopefully this will help to kickstart the critical thinking faculties of their little minds. The first is the underlying assumption that all of existence is essentially a cycle of creation and destruction. This is actually part of a larger idea that existence isn't headed anywhere and ultimately has no goal or end.
Universe is a constant exchange of energy, an infinite cycle of creation and destruction.
You can practically taste the nihilism at the end. Where I don't expect children to know what nihilism is, it's never a bad time to expand their vocabulary. Speaking of expanding vocabulary, I suppose that would include fictional names, such as Shem. This being is the prime celestial that represents God, although this being is just one of many such beings, and celestials are only part of the creation, just doing their job to keep the cycle going. To a mortal, a celestial might seem all-knowing, but we see this isn't the case in a clip about an hour into the film, where it's revealed that the Deviants and the Eternals are both products of Shem's trial and error process.
Every celestial host planet has its own predators. I first sent the Deviants to exterminate them, so intelligent life could grow. But there was a flaw in their design, and I lost control of them.
Stepping back a bit, to a universal view, it becomes clear that the being's all-powerful status is challenged when we notice that Shem is, as mentioned earlier, just a big part of a much larger system. No matter how mighty and powerful he is in this film, he never transcends beyond the cosmos. They never really get to a source. Just an endless cycle of greater beings creating lesser beings into eternity past. It gives one the feeling that nature is all in all. Now let's wander down what might be a very rocky road of logic. On this road, it seems logical that if someone isn't the maker of all things, then there is a good chance he was made. Hopefully this is tracking with some listeners. Pulling on this thread a bit more, there's an example of this with the character of Ajak, who, chosen as the Prime Eternal, we know she was created and commissioned for that role. With Shem being the Prime Celestial, could it be that someone chose and commissioned him for that role? There isn't any reference that I'm aware of to declare him as a self-existent being. Normally, beings that come into existence subsist. That would most certainly strip away any notion of an all-powerful rank. Underqualified for the position, as it were. That is just a drop of what could be milked out of one of the most underrated Marvel films. I'm not sure if there is any other movie in the cinematic universe that offers up such a huge, theologically delicious morsel of a question. Do created beings, in earnest, have the right to defy and even kill God?
Every time innocent lives have been sacrificed for the greater good, it turns out to be a mistake. We have to stop the emergence.
Cersei, we have no right to stop the birth of a celestial.
There has to be a way Tiamat can emerge without destroying the Earth. Our plan is to put Tiamat to sleep, not to kill it. I can't kill a celestial.
The answer to this beyond cosmic-sized question would be yes, if God wasn't good. Might can force an outcome, but it can't make that outcome just. Of course, to determine God's benevolent and malevolent status, there needs to be an objective static reference point for good, to measure him against. A subjective transitive reference wouldn't say anything about his nature, only how people are feeling at that time. The plot is set as one very healthy conversational meal, but the moral really isn't fitting for an appetizer. On the whole, its main moral is, follow your heart above all. This could be for two reasons, as far as I can perceive. The first is the assumption that the heart is somehow intrinsically incapable of corruption, which ends up on its ear as soon as one looks at some actions his heart has desired: adultery, theft, manipulation, murder. The other reason could be a faulty belief that even if your heart leads you astray, following it is still the right action, because it's a person's truest form of self-expression, which is the purpose of life. Or so some believe.
Sometimes I wonder if we did the right thing. Killing Tiamat.
It's too late for that. But you followed your heart. We all did. Even Icarus.
Moving from the moral, we now come to the crux of the movie, the grand overarching narrative. I had sort of an idea of what it amounted to, minutes after I watched it, but I had to let it run around in the back of my mind for a while till I had something articulate to put on paper, or screen, as it was. I do believe what it amounts to is the exact opposite of the gospel. Let's think about it.
Just farming humans as food for the Celestials, right?
In this film, an entire world is fostered so that the energy of billions of people can be used as a battery in order to give life to a god or celestial. Then all life on that planet is involuntarily sacrificed by the emergence of this celestial. When in fact, God became flesh and dwelt among us, voluntarily sacrificed himself, and then rose to bring us life. So in short, in the movie the world dies to bring a god life, and in actuality, God died to bring life to the world. Lastly, I have one quirky thought, which brings us to the character of Icarus. I'm sure you remember him. He was the one that's practically a smaller, Scottish, Marvel version of Superman. Only his magic eyes are yellow instead of red. Let's consider his faith in Aershem for a minute.
We need to trust Arishem's design for this planet.
I suspected you might have changed your mind. I can't let you betray Arishem.
Is this why you're willing to kill? You are so pathetic!
I'm an eternal, Fastos. I exist for Arishem. As do you.
I suppose, before we can come to a decision on whether or not Icarus's faith is admirable or detestable, we have to define what his faith is in. It's low-hanging fruit to say that his faith is just in Aershem. That part is very clear throughout the movie, but by stating that not much is being said. But when describing Aershem as the imperfect being who is delegating responsibilities of population growth in order to keep the cycle of events turning, it adds depth to a shallow belief. Another way it could be said is that Icarus's faith is in keeping the natural order of things and fulfilling his role in that order. His faith in the natural order, however, unlike all the religions of the world, does not come with any ethical duties, entanglements, or principles. So there is no guidance, and he has full license to complete his role by any means necessary. If ecology, or cosmology even, is his god, with his being trapped in the universe's endless cycle of creation and destruction, and his existence being only for keeping the insane cycle going, I imagine this would easily lead to homicide and eventual suicide, as is seen in the case of Icarus. Now I'm in a funk about the character. Whereas a sense of duty in a culture of indifference is admirable, his faith in endless nature is hopeless, and his means of carrying out this duty is detestable. He is neither fully admirable or detestable, just a man in an impossible situation, living in a reality going nowhere. He is truly blinded by an unyielding shallow faith in natural processes. But I'm curious if the archetype of this character's faith was built on Scottish Presbyterianism, given its high view of sovereignty and the supremacy of God. I wonder if the Scottish brogue was given to him as a head nod to that. I would be impressed if that was the case. It would show that the writing of the character had more depth than one usually expects. Someone may have done his homework. Just food for thought. So, in wrapping up, I just want to say that I hope you watch this movie with your kids, and then discuss its deeper implications, and listen genuinely to what your kids have to say. You might be surprised at their answers. And if nothing else is accomplished, at least it was practice in helping them think critically. Hopefully this will help turn our minds toward the eternal.